Josh and Jake are talking Theros.
Hey everybody, I am Josh from JNJtabletop, and as always, I am with
Jake from JNJtabletop. That was my cue.
and today we're going to be talking about the newest campaign setting for 5th edition D&D, and it's actually one that I'm pretty excited about. And if you know me personally, you know that sometimes I kind of hate on all the campaign settings.
He's not a fan.
Yeah. But this one is the Mythic Odyssey of Theros, and it's basically like taking your D&D games and putting them into the world of Greek mythology. And for me, that's really exciting. I don't know, what do you think about that, Jake, the idea of that?
Yeah, it's actually something in history I've always kind of been interested in, just because. And also, I was a nerd that watched, Hercules and Xena back when I was in middle school when it was current. But I really love the idea of just how in the forefront of this setting that the gods are, and how important faith and religion is, because I don't know, I feel like that's something I feel like a lot of D&D settings and characters tend to shy away from unless you're a paladin or a cleric, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think the way that we're going to go about this, and maybe we'll put some timestamps in the description, and if not, then we're just going to edit that part out. But the way that we're going to go about this is just kind of go chapter by chapter and talk a little bit about what's going to happen here, or what they have here. So the first chapter is kind of standard for campaign settings, and it's going to be the Welcome to Theros. It kind of gives you that description into it. It starts off with a poem, which I love that they do that, because they kind of just tell you, hey, this is Greek mythology, and then they're like, no, this is really Greek mythology, and they give you the poems there.
Anything that adds culture and depth like that, I approve.
Absolutely. I think they did a really good job there. It's kind of your standard, but they do give you the flavor, like I said, with like poems and stuff like that, and they give you the history, some hero stories, myths, the ages, and a little bit on the creation of the gods and the realms. And I thought that was good. I wouldn't say there's anything specific that stood out to me there. It's just kind of standard, but they did put their own flavor on it, and I do like that. I don't know if there's anything.
No, I'm right there with you. I agree.
Cool. So next one, and there's a lot to dive into here. It's going to be the character creation setting, the character creation chapter, and there's so much to love about what they did as far as characters and stuff, and it goes into what you were saying before about the gods just playing such a big role to the characters in here. So it starts off with the heroic drive, and that talks about amplifying your ideal and legendary bonds, tragic flaws. I love that they talk about that, and I love that they mention how important flaws can be. I wish that they would have given another list of here's some bonds that are better for this setting. Here's some flaws that are really good for this setting.
I agree. I think anytime you have a campaign setting guide or accompaniment, whatever you want to call them, I think it's nice when you have, anytime you can add something setting specific to a book, even if it's small, even if it's just it's one little paragraph, little table. I think that enhances it, and they do that a few times, but I think that might be one spot that this book may fall just slightly short in a couple of spots, but we'll get into that a little later, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree there. The one thing, I'm pulling it up right here, the one thing that it does say about the bonds, and this kind of is something we'll be talking about, I guess, a little bit more in the next chapter, is it talks about how you could match up bonds with specific gods. And there's some lists for those gods that has their ideals, and some of their information like that, their goals. And so while they don't have that list that I would like to see of some like campaign specific goals or bonds, you could easily pull from, like, if you're like, this is the god that I want to use, my character, this person's champion, I would just look through their list and then either make up your own or look through the player's handbook and see what you have there.
That does help add that flavor, like you said, with to tie it in a little bit. I think that's good.
And then we have the races of the setting. And that's something that I feel like this is continually going to be me saying, like, this is something that I'm really excited about. But I'm really excited about what they did for the races, because before I read this book, I said to myself, like, I love dwarves, I love elves, I love all of those fantasy races, but I really hope that in the Greek mythology world, they're not there. And they're not. So, and
I like, and I know we talked about this very briefly before we started recording. I love that they just said they're not known here on Theros unless they're visiting from other worlds. So it's like they leave that door open so that you still can play a character that you want to play, but it's like elves aren't here, so it's not a big part of the culture.
And part of the reason that I like that they're not like explicitly in there, obviously, like you just said, you can always play one if you want to. That's just up to your DM at that point. But part of the reason I like that is because when you put all of those races and cultures into your games, you need to explain them. So, like, or you don't need to. I think in most cases they don't explain them. They might say that this god created them, and then they kind of leave it at that.
Right.
Or they might say, like, like, this is Nomengard. Tell me about Nomengard. Tell me about the gnomes. Tell me about, like, I want to know about their culture if they're in here. And I think a lot of campaign settings will tell you a deep history about specific things, but then they also include, like, here's everything from the player's handbook and from Volos Guides to Monsters and from, like, Elemental book, like all of this stuff. Like, you could use any race you want, but they just tell you about the few that actually should be in the book.
Right.
So I really like this. All that to say, I really like what they did here. You have humans, which are humans. Then you have centaurs. That's such like a mythological thing, like to have creatures like that, and very like fae themed.
I actually think they even said their nature is fae too, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it? See, I love it. Love what I've been reading in this.
Yeah.
The next one that we have is the Lionin, and they are like proud lion-like hunters, many of whom live in defiance of the god.
Yes,
that's
yeah, and this is one of those things, because it's a very common thing where a lot of players will be like, oh, they hit all the like stereotypes. I'm a lone wolf, I don't trust easily, and it's like, and I'm also like an atheist, and it's like, well, you're adventuring with a paladin and a cleric twice. You've been raised from the dead from them, so you don't have to like them, but you can acknowledge that they're there. And in a setting like this, I mean, just say, like, we live in defiance of them, we know they're there, we hate them. That's fine, that's the thing. Like, but
if you're playing in this setting and you have a character that says that their character is an atheist and your mission is to find Poseidon's trident, it's like you don't have to like them, but they're here. So I like how they have that. Then of course you have your minotaurs. They are infamous, bloodthirsty, and they have a reputation even the most peaceful struggle to escape. So I guess they're kind of like the orcs of the setting, if you will. That's
I can see that. I like when settings have races like that, because if you did want to play one that is trying to overcome, say, some of those things that just are kind of in their nature, I feel like that adds depth to that character that you normally might not find. So races like that actually get me excited because I feel like it makes character choices even more special.
I totally agree. And if we backtrack slightly to go into that previous section on the tragic flaws, well, maybe your tragic flaw is, this is who I am, it's part of my nature, I'm going against my nature, or maybe it's just, it has something to do with that Minotaur background, how they're infamous for bloodthirstiness. And, you know, one of the things that it mentions about those tragic flaws is the flaw needs to be important because it can be something that the gods can take and use against you.
Exploit. Yes. So, yes, as a DM, oh, this setting, it highlights everything I love about D&D, and it highlights roleplay. So, I mean, you know, if they say lawful stupid is not in alignment, that's like the saying, right? But this lets the gods manipulate that. Like, Lex Luthor would constantly use Superman's morality against him, and that was kind of the thing. I mean, right? It's like a human versus Superman. Like, that's not a contest. But he would find ways to manipulate Superman. So I love that. It's like,
yeah. The next option we have are satyrs. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think
it's a good chance I'm not. I think you got it. All right. So they follow their passions in pursuit of wild revels and new adventures.
So can we just say they're like, the bards?
Yeah, right. They, you know, all of these are player character races, and then they made a race that is just the player.
Yeah.
And then there's Tritons, and they are an enigmatic sea-dwelling people with an endless desire to explore. I think all of these are they fit in the specific setting. Like, if I'm thinking about like a Greek mythology, you know, if I'm not, I don't even know what Theros is, but I'm thinking about, I want to play in a Greek mythology world. All of those are races that I would like to have in them. You know, they would all probably be in a monster manual, but it's cool that you have access to all of them because those are all cultures that you would see.
I agree.
Within the specific, you know, that's the brief overview of the races, but as you get in there, they also tell you a lot more about like what goes on in their heads. I'm scrolling through it right now, and they have all of this information about their culture. They have names, and obviously all the traits and abilities and that kind of stuff, languages. But there's just so much flavor in there, and I really like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want to play one of those lion people.
Me too. That's what I want to do. I just pictured, like, I don't know, that race in particular excited me, because one of my favorite characters from Star Trek: The Next Generation was Worf, because he was this proud warrior, you know, and that's just kind of how they kind of strike me that way. And I don't know, I'd love to do that, play like a barbarian or even something off type could be fun, but
I don't know who Worf is.
Oh, Josh, you have so much to learn.
Yeah, I'm just checking one thing. I want to see if the Triton has a swim speed. They do have a swim speed.
I know they can breathe underwater.
Yeah, so that's going to be significant. I mean, a lot of DMs have a problem with players starting out with like a swim and a fly speed, but it's like,
I could see fly speed being obnoxious, but how often are your underwater adventures really coming up? I mean, I guess you could have a whole theme and that's like a thing, but let them shine.
Exactly.
Let them shine.
The only time like a swim speed is going to be a problem is if you're doing a specific underwater adventure or like a nautical campaign. But even that, then exactly what you just said, just let them shine.
Yeah.
Okay, so after we get into the races, we have new subclasses in this.
Yeah.
And I love to see new subclasses. I just think it's a lot of fun having more options. I don't know if...
So the bards get the option for the College of Eloquence. And to me, this seemed to line up a lot with the College of Lore bard. But instead of emphasizing magic a little bit, it just is emphasizing the inspiration all the more. So you get the silver tongue, so right, rogues have that as like reliable talent where if anything that's a d20 roll of a 9 or lower counts as a 10. So like you basically can't fail, which yay, DMs get to deal with persuasion and deception checks at level 3 already having like it's like, oh, so the worst you can get is a 19. Great. Anyways, but the one feature right there at level 3, unsettling words. So you can use your bardic inspiration and put it on an enemy, and when the next time they make a saving throw, you roll that inspiration die and subtract it. So almost like Bane in a way. So this is just a bonus action. This sets up so many nasty combinations for spells. Like if you're going to cast Hold Person on someone, bloop, just use one of these on somebody. Now they're paralyzed and your barbarian and paladin and fighter are just annihilating the crap out of somebody or whatever. Like I think this is just tactically speaking nasty. Unfailing inspiration basically makes it reliable. So if you give an ally an inspiration at level 6 and they miss their attack roll, well, they still have it. They can just use it again. Like what?
That one, yeah, I could deal with the other stuff. That one is insane. That's like
great weapon master and sharpshooter for days.
It's exactly what I was going to say. I have you know the character I have, Marcus. If you're watching the Dragon of Icefire Peak game, when
definitely
he
check
gets
that
great
out.
weapon master,
Yes.
just it would be every single time. You know, that's But that's 100%. Awesome. I would love to have a bard in the party with that.
Yeah. You also get universal speech, which basically lets you. Now it's interesting. It says everybody can understand you, but it doesn't necessarily mean you understand them. So that could be some interesting role-playing opportunities there. And then the infectious inspiration, from what I gather here. So let's say you're a bard, you inspire someone, and they succeed. You can use your reaction to encourage a different creature other than yourself. And they're inspired without using one of your inspiration. So this is all about just, Oprah giving out cars, you're giving out inspiration. That's the way it is. Like, bards are one of my favorite classes. I flip-flop between wizard and bard as to which are my favorites. And this is one I would love to play one day because I love just being that support class and being annoying to a DM. You're set up here.
It definitely hits that mark.
Oh yeah.
Things being very good at support and also probably putting a wrench in the DM's plans, we'll say.
Definitely.
But
that's true. Annoying is a mean connotation.
It's a pretty strong option, though. I think that's kind of the case for once they start adding subclasses, and you just see they're like get very stronger.
The power creep, yeah.
But it's definitely cool. It's fun, and I feel like it just makes sense for the setting. And again, that's something I love about what we've seen from this book. It's just everything fits perfectly. There has I mean, the book's only been out for a week at the point of making this video, and I've looked a lot into it. Obviously, I haven't uncovered every single inch of it yet, but I haven't seen a single thing that doesn't fit in the setting perfectly. Everything I've read, I'm like, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah, it's true. Almost every time we're like, oh, Wizards is going to announce their latest book. You're like, it's a campaign setting. Like, it's usually the reaction Josh gets. He's like, you want to do this review? I'm like, yeah, I'm reading it over. I'm like, oh, I really like this. I hope Josh does.
It's awesome. And I'm gonna say the same thing I said about the last book for this book too, and it is even more true for this than it was for Wildmount. This is what every campaign setting should look like. Every campaign setting should fit into this mold of like, oh, we're gonna put something in here. We're also going to explain to a player exactly how it fits in here, and to a DM exactly what you can do with it in the campaign. And it's just, I love that. Yeah,
and I think, but if you're comparing it to Wildmount, Wildmount gets a lot of fun uh, things going on as far as structure of the book. I love the heroic chronicle over there, whereas this I feel like really sets the flavor. At like when I read Wildmount, I go, I'd like to use things in this book in my setting. When I read this, I go, I want to play an adventure or run an adventure in Theros. Like that's kind of the difference, I would say.
I agree 100%. I think both of them are great books, but Wildmount is like I really like these parts of this book and I want to use those. I want to see more of this. And this book is like, I've read 2 paragraphs and I'm stoked and I want to make a character and play in this or just make a campaign in this. But that brings us to the Paladin, Oath of Glory. And what we have here, it says, Paladins who take the Oath of Glory believe they and their companions are destined to achieve glory through deeds of heroism. They train diligently and encourage their companions, so they're all ready when destiny calls. The flavor of this feels, for me, it feels very heroic. And it feels like, I think of like people like Hercules and you know, all of those champions of Clash of the Titans. Have you seen those? Like I think of the heroes from all of our Greek myths. Like they all have that place of like, we're gonna do something great or like whatever, and it's exciting. I think you had another character in mind when you were reading this.
I just think it could be really fun to play someone a little bit like maybe Lord Farquaad from Shrek or something, who has like just an overinflated ego about them. Like I think you could go in a few directions with this and have a lot of fun with it. And if you really wanted to have like an anti-hero or like a rival hero, like run as a DM, you know, having them be a paladin with the Oath of Glory and kind of just be that guy that you're like, he did a nice thing, but I just want to hit that guy. Like it's just, I don't know. Depending on your personality for it, I think you could go in a different direction there.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, actually, in this, I really like their level 3. They get the Oath of Glory feature. So they have an inspiring smite. You know, immediately after you deal damage, you can use your channel divinity, and then you can roll 2d8 plus your level in this class, and then divide that temporary hit points, including yourself, up against, you know, allies or whatever. So it's almost like a double whammy. Like you hit something, they lose health, and then you can get bolstered. So that's everything about this. I mean, Oath of Glory. That it's about these heroic moments, and I think Inspiring Smite is kind of fits that well.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I love options like that just from a mechanical perspective too. Like things that it's like you get a 2-for-1 where you're like, bam, I hit this thing, but then it's also like, boom, everybody is buffed now. It's like I love stuff like that.
And it could be small, but temporary hit points. I mean, sometimes preventing damage from hitting you is more valuable than actual healing. So
watch Dragon Quest Fire Peak.
Yeah. You want to talk about some heroism there?
Yeah, right. The other thing that really sticks out for me from this would be the 20th level capstone feature. It's Living Legend. So you can empower yourself with the legends, whether they are true or exaggerated, of your great deeds. And I love the way that it even writes it.
Oh, yeah.
As a bonus, you gain the following benefits for a minute. You're blessed with otherworldly presence, gaining advantage on all charisma checks. Once on each of your turns, when you make a weapon attack and miss, you can cause that to attack. You could cause that attack to hit instead.
Yeah. I didn't miss.
And then if you fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to re-roll it. So, I mean, let's combine. Obviously, advantage on charisma checks is nice, especially if you're going up against something that attacks your charisma saves.
Yeah, I don't know if it would affect your saving throws, but I like that could be used for out of combat. You know, this has applications in both. You know, maybe you have to go up and give an inspiring speech or something.
True. But let's just talk about once on each of your turn when you make it a weapon attack and miss, you could cause that attack to hit instead. So let's combine that with Great Weapon Master,
Again,
and let's
yeah.
combine that with your inspiration from the Eloquence Bard. You should, if you're playing this sort of paladin and you are using a great weapon, two-handed weapon,
every time until yes, until you burn all of your inspirational features. 100%.
And you're just gonna have a +10 to your damage, like always, pretty much, for at least a minute.
Definitely.
And then the other one is if you fail a saving throw, you could use your reaction to re-roll it. Like, yeah, that consumes your reaction, but let's combine that with the auras, and it's like you are already probably as a paladin adding your charisma bonus to any saving throw. Now you also get to re-roll them if you fail it.
Yeah, your save or suck defense is going to be strong with this one.
Yeah, and obviously it's not passive. You know, it consumes a bonus action and only lasts for a minute. But this is probably one of the best 20th level abilities that I've seen out of any class or subclass.
And it's fun. I mean, Oath of Glory. It's called Living Legend. Like, yes.
It totally makes sense. Totally fits. I love it. I think those are the two biggest things that stood out for that one for me. Next section book would be the background. I wish that I really wish this is, and honestly this is a good thing because this is one of my biggest complaints about the book, and it's a very minor thing to be my biggest complaint about the book.
I agree.
But it's background and not backgrounds. There's only one background in this book.
And also it's like, oh, the Olympics are Greek. You're an athlete.
So the background is the athlete background, and it fits. It does fit in the setting.
Sure, absolutely.
But I almost feel like they just, if you're only going to put one background in your book and it's going to be athlete, I just wouldn't put a background in your book. Just tell your player to use the gladiator or the entertainer background or something like that, and then just
gladiator would have been
chain.
What a missed opportunity there, I think.
But
I mean, you can hear your favorite event could be marathon or long distance running.
Those totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. I wonder which one of those, like, just let's dig into that. Which one of those is more difficult, right? Is long distance running more than 26 miles? Or
I mean, I guess they're marathon, talking, this is your 2,400 meter relay or whatever, but instead of 26 miles, I don't know, whatever that means. But they're really just, I don't even think they offer any mechanical advantage. I think it's just, I run long distances, or I box, or I,
just flavor. And you know, that's what the backgrounds are. I do love backgrounds, and backgrounds are one of the things that I'd like to see improved in campaign settings in the future, because I know we're probably just going to see tons more campaign settings and no supplements.
Yeah, that's probably likely.
But not no supplements. I'm sure we'll get some. But one thing that I would really like to see in the future is an emphasis on the background section, because with things like the Heroic Chronicle was a step in the right direction in the Wildmount book. Backgrounds are another great way where you could get a character right from character creation into the specifics of your setting, and that's something that I would just really love to see. Like, give me some campaign specific backgrounds. You know, son of a god, like anything, you know, like there's some, I can't think of a flashy title for it, but like you were born and some soothsayer or oracle thing had some prophecy or something about when you were born, or whatever. Just Greek mythology things that fit.
Myth, give me a myth, a legend. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anything that can connect that connects the character to the setting tends to also connect the player to the character more, which I think just enhances the game for everyone involved. So I'm with you on that. I mean, this is just a background, and I think it was just, I mean, man, this was playing t-ball when they could have been, playing some baseball, whatever analogy you want to use there.
The nice thing about it, though, is you could find a place to stay. So
that is true. Although this one I think is reduced to 50-50.
It is reduced to 50-50.
Like, you know what, backgrounds have been overpowered, Josh. We're gonna dial it back. Remember that? Imagine that board meeting sitting around. Man, the bard just has to get up there and play his lute, and everybody can sleep at the inn for free. It's too strong.
In Gunner, we gave them access to free lodging if people are fans of theirs. And in that survey, a lot of players and DMs found it to be overpowered. They said that, that they were at night. So we couldn't have that. We some of the time. Some of the time. It's 50.
Just dial it back a notch, right? Here we go.
We joke, but it's all in good fun. It's a nice little flavor thing. And if you have, like, I don't want to say good players, but if you have players that really get into their background and stuff, and they want to get into a town and just be that hero and talk about all of the great things that, oh, I am a long distance runner and whatever, and maybe somebody has to roll the history check to see if they remember them. And, they fans and stuff, and that could be fun. We just like to joke about the
absolutely. Especially if you roll poorly and no one knows who you are. It's like, you really should know what I've done.
So one thing I want to go back a little bit. One thing that we skipped over, is the natural gifts. It's right in the beginning of character creation. And this is one of the things that is amazing. When I was talking about character creation and I said this section is so meaty and so good, when you make a character, your character is a hero, so they get some sort of supernatural gift from a god. And that could be like a heroic feat, which is basically you take a feat from the feat list in the player's handbook, and it's a little bit more. It's a little better. They have a list of that. They have some campaign or specific things.
I was gonna say, I like how for each one, they kind of had a little bit of a way to kind of tie it into a more gods-based setting. I like that a lot, actually.
I totally agree. And I think the really cool thing here is, like, they have the anvil wrought there, and they have this whole description on it, and they give you the benefits that you get for it, and we don't need to get into that because that's going to be, you're going to read through the benefits and see whatever's exciting for you as a player. But the thing that stands out, the thing that gets me excited about it, is there are characteristics in there. So it's not just like, here's this bonus, here's Great Weapon Master, here's whatever. It's like, here's what you would get, here's some characteristics, here's some things that set it apart. And I love to see stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
So the next place that this book is going to take us is Chapter 3, and that is the Gods of Theros. I don't think we need to get specific into every single god. The thing that I love about this is that there are what do we have here? 1, 2, 4, it's like 15, 16 gods.
Yeah, it's total. A good amount.
And that's perfect. Because if you get into, and I'm not saying anything bad about like Faerun and Forgotten Realms, it's a great setting, but there are so many like deities in that game. I agree, and there's no overlap here. There's a lot of in settings that have that many like gods and goddesses and all that junk. There's always going to be overlap. So I like that this is pretty straightforward. So. This chapter is and I called it Chapter 3. It is Chapter 2, but this chapter kind of it gives you all the information you need to know about them and their place in the setting. It talks about their influence. It talks about their goals, which I thought was really cool. Gives you a relationship, so all that stuff, information about worshiping them and what that would look like, and that's awesome just for the sake of like of world building as a DM. Like maybe a player doesn't need to know that, but as a DM, I absolutely want to know that. I want to know what it's going to look like if there's some festival for that specific god.
Yeah, you need to have some kind of passing understanding.
Yeah. They give you myths, specific stories about them, which is just awesome. Obviously the alignment and all that stuff. But then they talk about the favor. So I'm just looking at Ephra, or Ephra. I'm going to call it Ephra because I don't know. It says, Ephra seeks champions who will defend her cities fiercely, both from external threats and internal corruption. She asks them to protect not only the people, but also the structures that compromise Apollos. The circumstances that led you to worship Ephra most likely involved the polis you call home. I'm definitely saying that wrong. Maybe not. I don't know.
A polis is a city. That's all. Yeah.
Ephra's favor table provides just a few possibilities. And then you have a table of circumstances for how you could have gained her favor. And it's like that for all of them. This is just the one that I decided to read. I think that it's so good in a game, in a setting like this, where it's supposed to be Greek mythology and they play a big part of the world of your life. They're a big part of it. You need to have this sort of information, and they hit the nail right on the head, giving you everything you need to make them important to the world.
I agree. Yeah. What did you think of the piety system?
I really loved it. I mean, I only looked at it briefly, as you know, but from what I read, just having like a metagame score or currency, if you will, to demonstrate or to visualize your favor with the gods, and then you get benefits based off of that.
Yeah.
And then like taking things away if you change gods, and you probably can't change back, but if you do, then it has to be some big thing.
Yeah, like hey pal, you walked out on me. I need something from you.
Yeah. And that's a campaign, or if not a campaign, I mean that's an adventure. That's like
a major storyline.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you get characters. That's how you get your players really involved.
Yeah, it's almost like they're encouraging you to make gods like NPCs in this setting.
Yeah,
and I love that.
I do too. It's so nice. I just think about like you have a player in a game and making them do or them deciding to change and for whatever reason, like maybe you made them as a DM, you made that god NPC give them an offer they couldn't refuse or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And they got the benefit out of it, but now they kind of have to decide, do I want to stick with this? Do I want to try to go back? If they decide to go back, just having them, like, because you have your party of players and whatever Avengers quest you're giving them to do together. But once they have their solo quest like that, whether it's solo or the party's with them, but this is their thing.
Yeah,
I love stuff like that. I love giving players things like that. I love being a player and either being involved when somebody else has something really personal and important going on and being able to help them, or myself as a player being able to have that. I think it's great. I love it.
I agree completely.
Love the piety system.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Just everything about this in terms of that, what you just said there, it just ups the stakes. It's not like you just turned your back or betrayed a crime lord. You betrayed a god, or like, it's not. It's just another scale, and I don't know. I kind of really like that for D&D.
I'm totally with you. Um, the other thing, just getting back into the lists that they give you with each god, is they also have a list of ideals, to just give you an idea of what kind of ideals a follower would have of them. And I think that's good when going back into character creation. If you are trying to choose these great ideals, these great flaws, this great stuff, I'd look at the list of gods first. You talk to your DM about it, talk about the character you want to make, and then look at that list of ideals.
Totally makes sense that your ideals would line up with the god you serve.
The only other thing that they have here for the god section, aside from just the descriptions of them and what we've already talked about, is the actual benefits that you get from the piety score. And those are some really cool things that it's just really, really fun and exciting, the stuff that they have in here. The next chapter, I think, kind of, is there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as the specific individual gods or anything like that? Okay.
No, I'm looking forward to reading more about them, but I just love the kind of the framework that they lay out here.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, I totally agree. The next chapter, this is actually chapter 3. This one is the realms of gods and mortals, and this is kind of your, the DM's guide chapter about planes. And I don't know anything, if you have anything.
Well, the one thing I like about it is because I think, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, of like with Faerun, there's like the dwarven god of war, the elven, there's like so many. The setting itself physically on the material plane here, it's kind of small, and I really like that because, number one, it allows DMs to be creative. It allows them to open up and expand and kind of fill in blanks that fit their adventure, and it also is not that taxing to familiarize yourself with, right? Like, you don't have to learn Neverwinter, Waterdeep, just everything around. You could, and that would be great, but a lot of that stuff isn't going to be used in your campaign because you can only do so much. Here there's 3 cities. That's certainly easy enough to be able to at least get a passing familiarity with, and it leaves mysteries. I think it even says like the Minotaurs they come from the north, and it's like, okay, we don't really know where they come from because it's just not explored. I love that.
It's not as to piggyback off of what you said, it's not as intimidating of a setting to just drop into and play,
I agree.
or run a game in. Like when the first time I played a game or ran a game in Faerun, I was like, all right, it's time to do research on the Sword Coast. I read 7 books of the Drizzt novels and was trying to figure out what I can about it. And you don't actually need to do that kind of stuff. Just make it your own. Don't be as crazy as I am. But something like this doesn't even allow me to get that crazy and do that much research on a setting. And I love that. Just read the information, the little bit of information that it has there about the place. Maybe read a couple actual Greek myths, hero stories, or whatever you want to read. And
I like that idea.
Playing it. I just think it's great. And it's so like the Siren Sea. It's just, and they even have poems like right at the top there too. It's just, it's so flavorful. It's so great. I don't think I've ever read a setting book, and this is not a dig at setting books. This is just my personal feelings about them. I've never read the history of a setting or information about a location and been really excited about it and want to keep reading. I like some of the information that they have in there. I like taking certain things from it. But this is the first time that I've read, here, this is some information about the city, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Let me keep reading. That could definitely be a me thing. But all that to say is this is something I'm excited about.
Sure, and I think just I feel similarly. Like you want to give a setting depth, character, and culture without overwhelming. And I think they leave a poem that is just like a mythological hook, right? This is Greek mythology, which is why they went that way. And I think if you're going to make your own campaign setting, just add some traditional things in culture, like a creation story, a poem, maybe a few words in a song, whatever it is, or a quick little legend, whatever it is. Those little things can create a world that your players are going to want to adventure in, and that's exactly what this did for me.
Yeah, and having something small like that will make your players, or even if it's something you're putting out there for other people to write games in, it will make people bond with that setting so much more, something short like a poem or like anything Jake mentioned, than your 300-page like campaign Bible. Like, it's good.
I love it because it lets the DM fill in the blanks. This is a myth, and if your players just seem to talk about that, maybe the next time you're off camera or whatever, that's when you think like, ooh, that sounds like something maybe I should flesh out, they might explore, and you just go from there. Love it.
So the next chapter that they have here is chapter 4, creating Theros Adventures. And this kind of gives you information for doing god-based adventures, divine assistance, things like that, helping a god with whatever. They have tables about that. They also have a list of all of the gods and ways that you can incorporate them into adventures. I think that's pretty cool. We've kind of already touched on that. Everything else throughout this book just screams adventure hooks. And then this is just a specific chapter about that, like going in depth on it. So yeah, it's good. It's exactly what you'd expect it to be. The Underworld Adventures, there's so many little bullets about it. They, Living Descent, Deathly Interludes, Journey into Death, Denizens of the Underworld, Paths of Escape, Beyond Death. Like, I think that's great, and that's like the epitome of a Greek myth, or at least a modern one. When you're talking about like Kratos, God of War, in the first game, that's something you do, So that's the thing that I think is a lot of fun. They also include a short adventure in here, No Silent Secret. You haven't looked too much into that because we don't know which one of us is going to run it yet.
Yeah, we always avoid those things until it's like, are you going to run this? Am I gonna... Who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's all we're going to talk about for chapter 4, because I think if just read it yourself, decide what you want to adventure in.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, treasures. So treasures is always fun for me. I always love reading through like the magic items and the artifacts and stuff like that, but you could do that on your own time. We're not going to spoil everything in the book. There's a couple that I wanted to go over here, and the first one would be the Sling Bullets of Althemene. Again, I have no idea if that's pronounced correctly. I'm just saying it the way I'd say Antigone. So this is it's literally just bullets for a sling, and I love that they make a sling a valid option in this game because it just feels very mythological. But basically, the sling bullets come in a pouch, which contains 1d4 plus 4 bullets, and then you get to roll on a table to determine what kind of magical property each of them has. And that's kind of exciting for me. But there's all the options that they have there are really good ones: banishment, fulguration, stunning, tracking. I guess tracking would be the least exciting of all of them if you're in a combat trying to kill someone and not trying to track them. But the really crazy thing for this, for me, is if the bullet misses, it just pops back into your pouch. So it's like I would love to give something like this to a low-level party and give them like just one bullet, and just see what they do with it. Like, do they use it right away? Do they, I don't know.
My precious.
But but I love that it's a finite thing. You only have a certain amount of them. I could totally see a god giving this out as like a gift to be like, hey, you have to do this thing for me. I'm only going to give you one of these, and that should be enough. You have a problem with that? You know,
like, no, sir, no, ma'am.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love stuff like that. The other one in here is Helm of the Gods that I thought was kind of interesting, and basically, while you're wearing this helmet, you know whether there's a celestial or fiend within 30 feet of you. You know where it is, and unless it's behind total cover, which is kind of, I guess, if you're in like I don't know, maybe some sort of like party scenario or something, trying to figure out someone's disguising themselves. I mean, that's a big
Kind of reminds me of the yeah, that's true. Kind of reminds me of the Paladin's Divine Sense a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing that's kind of cool is it has 3 charges, and you have a table of the gods, and for each god there's a spell that you get to use one of those charges for.
I like that. Adds another level of flavor for the setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I wanted to point it out, because I just think it's interesting that it ties it in like that. And you could use any one of those gods spell associated, but I would kind of like, if you're a champion of one, I would almost say you have to use that one specific thing instead of having the whole list of all of them. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So what are you saying? So if like I'm a champion of Ifara or whatever,
you get protection from good and evil, and that's it.
But that's so then yeah. So why can you use any of them? I thought you only got the one that you were associated with.
Would be you would be able to
pray
use any
to one of them. I see.
Yeah, so it says, while whenever you finish a long rest wearing it, you can pray to one of the gods listed in the helm and store the spell in the helm, replacing anyone that's already stored in there.
Yeah, I like your idea better. I like the idea of this is the helm of Heliod.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah, and that's it.
And the next one is like, this is the helm of Nylea or whatever. Mm-hmm. I like that better personally. I also like the idea that it is unique. There are not 2 helms of Heliod out there. There's just one. I kind of like that.
And that all, I totally agree. Like something like this, there should be just one. And when you're doing it as that, where it's like, this is the helm of Heliod, then you also have, well, like, this is the helm of Nylea. And sure, that like nerfs it a little bit, but I don't know. I like that. I like the more setting specific, even if it does restrict you a little bit.
Yeah, but you could do something like maybe there's 5 charges, or I don't know. You could.
Yeah, there's definitely ways
buff
where
the
you
spell DC or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. The next section in the treasure would be the artifacts, and here specifically they point out weapons of the gods, and they have a chart for or a random encounter table, not encounter, but random table for slots. Basically, either you're trying to steal this god's weapon, or the one that I loved was wrest back a god's weapon from a divine champion who needed it but refuses to return it.
Oh, that sounds like a fun quest. It was like, no, don't give that one to me. I'm fine. No, I'm good.
That's like, I would love to, even if I didn't play that or run that, just watch a party go in, either kill the old champion of the god to get it back, or convince him, do whatever quest to get it back. Now they have it. Are they gonna give it back? Like, I don't know. I love.
I see what you're saying. So like now, like they had to go fix a problem, and now they might do the same exact thing.
Now you're gonna have to get some other champion to get it back from you. Like I don't know. I love the ideas that come to mind when I see those hooks. There's a lot of artifacts here, and again, they're all.
I like that the piety score is tied to them too. I mean, they have bonuses based on how strong you are aligned with that god. I think that's another fun way to be able to go about that.
Absolutely. I love weapons or items that grow with you like that. Also, worth mentioning, there is a magic bow here, which is, well, one of less than 5, I think, in the entire game.
Bows need some love.
Yeah, bows need some love, and you know, of course, I know the obvious comment. Okay, neckbeard. I know that you're about to say, "Oh, well, you could just take whatever flaming longsword and make it a flaming bow instead." Yeah, I know you can do that, but there should be some specific bow things. That'd be pretty cool. And
I
now there is,
agree.
and that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have artifacts the same way the DMG has artifacts, and these ones are just tied into the setting. And Jake said that with the PED score too. They're tied to the gods. They're tied to the campaign setting, and then they're even tied to that other mechanic. I love that everything in this book just ties back into itself. It's great.
Yeah.
It does that. All right, so we've made it through pretty much the whole book. We are now into chapter 6, Friends and Foes, and it is their own monster manual. And I really like what they did with this because there is a lot of overlap with the actual monster manual and even Volo's Guide to Monsters.
Yep.
With all of these, there's a paragraph at least that says how it fits into the setting and what's different about it in this setting. And
yeah, normally you see that about player character races more than monsters, and it's nice to see. It's an extra resource for DM. I really like that.
Absolutely. And you know, I think it's nice that they put in the creating Theros Adventures in there. I think that's a good thing to have. But everything else in this book, and especially this Friends and Foes section, if you're just reading through this Friends and Foes and you see any even something that's already in the monster manual, and you just read that paragraph above, you know, like we read through the section of you could have underworld adventures. Well, I'm going to read about Returned, and you know, Returned is something that comes back from the underworld.
Yeah,
and there's all this information about those, that there's the I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm not going to attempt to, but there's like this giant skeletal undead creature that defends the border of the underworld. And there are just, if you're DM and you look through this monster manual and read some of those descriptions and you don't get ideas for campaigns, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, they did a really good job. And I know in Greek mythology, you know, having the whole life and death kind of thing and is a big emphasis, and I think they did a good job here with celestials and devils / demons and fiends and whatnot. There's it's like you just said, it is rich for storytelling potential, and I don't think it oversteps too much either. Like I don't think it ties your hands with it. It really walks that line well.
I totally agree. I think there's one thing, and this also just ties into the beginning section of the book where it gives you information on the setting in general. But there's a monster called the Doomwake Giant, and I'll just read briefly about this. It says, "Belief is a powerful force in Theros, capable of bringing about wonders and changing the world, but not always for the better. Doomwake giants arise from pernicious fears that infect a whole city or region. If enough mortals dread destruction for long enough, their terror can manifest one of these massive Nyxborn beings. If people are scared about something bad happening, a Doomwake giant, this massive evil giant thing, just forms and starts wreaking havoc on the setting. Like that, I love that. I think that's such a cool idea that something can happen. Your big bad he doesn't have to do anything. He just has to make people afraid. You know, if your big bad's thing is to get, maybe you have people standing up on the soapboxes just saying like the end is nigh, giants are coming, like whatever, then like, you know, get that in people's heads and stuff like that, and suddenly it just happens.
Yeah.
I think that's very cool.
It adds a lot of depth to the kinds of stories you can tell. To have, you know, it was like Neverending Story was the terrible nothing. You know, I mean, it's like, okay, it was like this faith based thing. You know, you had to fight it back with what, you know, the belief in your heart. That's like a, normally there's combat for that in D&D, and here it just adds another layer. You know, you can have that or you can have this.
Yeah. Well, I'll just there's so many things that we could talk about here. There's only one more that I will say, and then I'll stop. I promise. Unless Jake has anything he wants to point out to you.
You never know.
This one is the Colossus of Akros, and it's this giant statue that stands above this city, and
Yeah,
people
I
just
like
feel
that.
yeah, it's so good. The people just feel like peace when they see it, and all this stuff. But then there are certain times where if it's really needed, they can call upon this massive statue. What size is this?
Oh, it's
Gargantuan
gargantuan.
statue
Yeah,
to
like if a
come and
Doomwake
fight.
giant showed up, maybe.
I love the storytelling thing there and the world building, because like you
Yeah.
walk into a city you've never been there before, but you see this massive Statue of Liberty, if not bigger sized thing, and then you hear like, oh yeah, 1,000 years ago that thing awoke and defended us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. I don't know. That those are the ones that I really wanted to say something about. I don't know if there's anything that you had there.
No, I you know, I got excited about a lot of these. Actually, the Colossus was the one that I just envisioned some kind of a cool myth, like you just said. Um, I just really like that it has the forces of good and evil represented in god form, and the beasts and creatures that they had for here really felt like it could really tell those stories well in a unique way that's not in other books, and that's not something you normally see.
So that brings us to the last section of the book. Hard to call this a chapter. I don't think it is really a chapter, but these are the maps. And maps are nice. It's nice that they threw maps in here.
Mm-hmm.
I personally found them very underwhelming.
Yeah, me too. I think, you know, it's nice to have them. You know, Underworld Crossing. You know, a lot of these things are nice to be able to tell those stories, but they're not in color. I mean, I don't know. I would have. I feel like that would be another knock against it, but still better than not having them.
Oh, absolutely. Better than not having them. And that's, you know, not to say that the artist didn't do a good job. It's better than anything I could make. It's just
I've seen you draw
yeah, it's no good. But it's the one section of the book that I think really could have they could have made a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all that aside, and I will also say that the art in the book is great. Everything I've seen in the book, aside from the maps, just incredible. I loved it. It just like very thought provoking, gets me excited about the setting, and I just really liked it. So all those things said, what do you think about the book?
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't give it a perfect score, but I think an A or A minus. I think I'm really would be very excited to play or run an adventure here. I would feel like as a DM, I would feel empowered enough to spark my own creativity, and the setting feels unique enough to make it special and stand out. When compared to the others that D&D typically offers. And I think that if you're going to make a campaign guide, I'm not sure you could really ask for more than that. And if I'm going to just nitpick that the map's not in color or you didn't give me enough backgrounds, you know, those really would be the only two things I feel like it really may have stubbed its toe on. So all in all, I would, yeah, I liked it.
I totally agree with everything you said there. I mean, obviously, if you watched this whole video, then you heard me and Jake too, just like singing the praises of this book, because every chapter brings something new to be excited about, and it expands on itself. Whether it's just like, here's the story, here's your character and how they're blessed by a god, then it's like, okay, here's the god and here's the score that you have for like building up on that. Here's the weapons and how they can grow with you based on your score there, and it's just like all of these really cool things that just build on themselves. I loved it. I totally agree. If I was to have to like give it a score, it would be an A as well, something like that. The things that I would like to see change, exactly like you said. Maps are in there. I don't think any of the other books even had maps like that. So, whatever. Maps, it's a plus that they're even there. I would like to see some sort of like heroic chronicle. I think that has been introduced into the world of D&D supplements, and it should be here to stay. And I would love to see versions of that for everything. I know that on D&D Beyond, we're starting to see those for Sword Coast, and I think they might have used one for the name escapes me, but the other campaign setting, that very high magic setting.
Eberron.
You guys, Eberron, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, let me know in the comments because I don't know, but I would like to see a Heroic Chronicle in there. If you're going to include backgrounds, and you already heard my spiel on that, I think backgrounds should be included. I would have liked to see more of them. That's really it. Everything else I'm pretty stoked and happy with. I'm very excited to create games in this setting and playing games in this setting. And if all I get from a campaign setting or from reading a campaign setting is it getting me excited about the setting, that's awesome.
Yeah, because
that's what you want.
Half the time is, you'd be like, oh, this would be cool, that would be cool, but then you also don't maybe necessarily feel like you have the tools to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I think this does that. I think it does it very well. That's a good thing, because a lot of times I'll read a campaign setting and be like, oh, that's kind of cool, I'll incorporate that in my own. And this...
Yeah.
I want to play a game in Theros now, so
exactly.
Maybe that'll be on the docket soon. Who knows?
Who knows? Do you want to see that? If that sounds like something you'd like to see us do, maybe you want to see us go more in depth on certain things in Theros, talk about the specific gods. Do you have a favorite one? I want to hear about that. But if you want to see us play in a game, either our own game that we make or in the sample game that they have in there, let us know in the comments, because we read those. So I think we can just say, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to watch our Dragon of Icefire Peak game, that is Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. We release videos every Wednesday, and we also release those Icefire Peak videos on Mondays. Friday night fights, sometimes on Fridays. Follow us on all the links in the doobly-doo. Absolutely. And we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.